Hello and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. Welcome to episode 50. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. Podcast gives a fan's perspective on IndyCar and other forms of motorsports. Before I get started, I got to introduce my co-host. Hey, Timmy.
Hello, Dan.
How are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm good. You sound
Good.
like you're a little busier on a holiday week Monday than you need to be.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, so it's been super busy. It was just a busy day at work. I don't know what to tell you. And then I had some things to do with the family, and here I am. But I made it.
There you go. Good job.
Yeah,
Nice
totally.
to see you. We look like we live in totally different climates because, of course, I'm wearing my Jack Harvey "You Don't Know Jack" t-shirt, and you're all bundled up to your neck like it's 20 degrees.
I think it's going to get a little warm in here, actually. Typically, when I shut my office door, it gets really hot in here, so I don't know what I'm doing. So if I do strip during the show, you know why, right?
Yeah. I'm wearing the t-shirt because we're going to get to this point when we get to the IndyCar section.
You got Sonsio still up there, too.
I do, because, the Sonsio folks.
I know. That's very
We
nice.
love the folks at Sonsio. We appreciate all that they do for us, for IndyCar,
Absolutely.
and for Road America. So, Tim, before we get started, guess what I did today? I did work today, but I had a pretty easy day. But guess what I did today?
I don't know. What'd you do?
I applied for our media credentials for the Rolex 24.
How'd that go?
It was good. I punched it in. It was pretty easy. It was all online. I'm excited about that because, as you know, we had a great time there last year, even though we froze after 11 o'clock. But we had a great time last year. That's also it was one of the non-IndyCar podcasts that we did and engagements that had terrific engagement.
Yeah.
On the YouTube, our podcast, as well as our engagement on our Instagram. So I'm looking forward to
videos on Instagram.
Back to that. Yeah, we did. So I had a terrific time last year. I'm looking forward to this year as well. I think it'll even be better. And if the fine folks at IMSA and Daytona Speedway can see their way to helping out this, modest podcast with some media, we will cover them appropriately, give them all the attention that they need.
And I heard the Bus Bros were going to the Rolex, right? Aren't they going to be on a team? Is that what I read?
Don't know.
That's what I thought I saw. So
cool.
More IndyCar folks there than normal. So
which is probably why we have the engagement that we do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we got to get into it here. F1 finished their season at long last. So we had two actual races that took place before this recording since the last one. It was Brazil, which was a fantastic event. Did you watch the Brazilian Grand Prix?
I did.
It was a great event. It was very exciting. George Russell got his first win in Formula One. So congratulations to George. Congratulations to Mercedes, because that was obviously a big deal to them. That was the whole talk about finishing second doesn't mean as much to them as getting a win this year. So they were actually able to do that. Unfortunate for Lewis, as we saw yesterday or during the finale at Dubai, they weren't able to do that. So Abu Dhabi, sorry. So concentrating on Abu Dhabi, the results: Max Verstappen. Tell me if you've heard it before. Charles Leclerc finishes second place, and then Sergio Perez finishes third. That second place for Leclerc actually puts him second place into the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, he's second place in the championship.
Perez. The Red Bull team was pretty, aggressively trying to get that for Perez. The team was. Max wasn't as aggressive, perhaps. Refusing, and there's no other word for that, flat out refusing to help his teammate at Brazil.
Yeah,
and taking it into this weekend. So they claim that they worked it out and everybody was happy and it's going to be a team effort and we're going to do everything we can for Checo, but that didn't necessarily come to fruition during this Abu Dhabi race.
So the interesting thing is that Brazil doesn't even really matter because the way they finished in Abu Dhabi,
3
Perez was still
points
going to
different.
be
Yeah.
1 point behind Leclerc.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, all the drama didn't matter. But when you look at it, you need to let your teammate by, and obviously there were some issues there.
Right. Yeah, I hated to see that because it would have been really great for Red Bull Racing to pull a hat trick, right? Would have been able constructors, drivers, and second place in drivers. That would have been a great achievement. They've not done that
Mm,
in their previous championship seasons. It would have been nice to do that. It would have been a nice payback for Perez, who has been an outstanding wingman to Max Verstappen, and Max just wasn't able to pay that back.
mhm.
Fused in Brazil, and didn't really get an opportunity necessarily to do that for him at Abu Dhabi. So
So I
we
saw things. Can I talk a little bit about this? So I
sure
saw some posts and some people commenting that it happened in my household. Can Max back Leclerc up? Can he slow down and back Leclerc up and this and that? I said, no, you don't want to get in
could.
DRS zone because you're probably going to get overtaken. But I guess you could maybe do a battle back and forth, which would allow Perez to get closer than what he was. Because
Yeah,
when you looked at the race, he was 10 seconds back with about 10 laps to go. And at that point, I'm going, there's no way you're making up a second a lap to get around Leclerc. Talking
he
about,
was hunting him down, but it wasn't. I don't think it was going to be
yeah.
right. Like I think he still had a little too much traffic there. Trying to, I think it was Gasly trying to get around Gasly. That
Hmm.
was troublesome for him, and it just
I,
it just
and I
wouldn't
was
have done it.
surprised that the one stop strategy worked so well too for both Max and Leclerc, right? So they stopped once, they were on mediums, went to hards, and
That was it.
that was it. And I couldn't believe that they were able to hang on that long. And Max even had a pretty good lead over Leclerc at the time. So it surprised me a little bit that
Yeah.
they were able to hold on. But when you saw the 10 laps, 10 seconds, I was like, oh, that's over.
Right. The Ferraris have been kind of wood chippers on tires this season, especially the second half of the season. So I don't think necessarily they were able to find something in the setup. And Abu Dhabi is running those hard tires for a reason. I honestly think it's just because Max didn't wasn't full out in that race like we've seen in other circumstances. If it would have been a regular full out race, he probably would have won by 20, 30 seconds like he has in the past, which means Leclerc would have had to push harder, which means that Ferrari would have chipped up their tires like they normally
Hmm.
do.
Which
So,
Max was telling the team that to tell Perez to go full out because
yeah,
his tires were
that was
holding up.
helpful.
Yeah, that's as much help as he gave his teammate.
Yeah. Yep. So I guess we'll see how this moves on, right? Because we know that Perez played a big part in that this season finale in 20 right in 2020, holding up Lewis in certain circumstances. He was able to play a
Yeah,
big
a
part
year ago
in that. Yeah, a year
at
ago.
this race.
This
Yeah,
year
absolutely.
certainly been a good teammate to Max. Max had this year sewed up. He didn't need a lot of help, but he was unwilling to offer the same in return for Perez.
Yeah, and in the news to the media is everything's fine. We figured it all out.
Well, yeah. What
Everybody's
else are you
good,
going to
but
say?
that's not the case. You know,
Yeah,
there's still going to be issues. They've got to
sure.
still resolve it. Drivers need to come together and figure it out. But at the end of the day, you got competitive spirits, and competitive spirits will eventually just topple on each other. So
Yeah,
um, we'll see how this plays out in years to come as you look at Perez's contract and how long he's in that car, and does he continue there or does he move on? I think Brazil is just the tip of the iceberg of what's going on in that team, which
right,
you'd hope there'd be better camaraderie.
right. Hold on to that thought because we're going to talk about that.
All right.
And we're going to talk about one more team. Pietro Fittipaldi on this weekend, he was in the Haas on Friday, finished 17th. Pato Award, IndyCar driver Pato Award, was in the McLaren on Friday as well. He finished 18th. Is there anything to read into that or to use our last segment, our last show, right? Is that a big deal or a big deal? I think it's a big deal. I don't think there's anything really to derive from any of that. So is what it is. Other notables on the weekend: Fernando Alonso retired with a water leak. But more importantly to me, this is another unhappy divorce in the right behind
Mm-hmm.
Fernando Alonso as he gets ready to move on to another team. He couldn't get out of that Alpine fast enough
Yep.
to move over to the Lance and Larry show, right, at Aston Martin.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that moves. I'm
Yeah, after
I'm
the
suspecting
USGP.
fireworks there without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
At that team. So we'll see how that works out. But unfortunate for Alonso because Alpine was good. They were good this year. They had some reliability issues. They finish fourth, right, in the manufacturers championship. So I think they had a good year. I think they finished fourth because of the strength of Alonso. And Ocon's been a great driver. I have it, Tim. It's in the notes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking too.
So that's where that is. But we'll see how that works out next year. Hamilton retired with hydraulic failure. First time. I had to look this up. This is the first time in his F1 career he's gone winless.
For Hamilton, yeah, it's 15 seasons. He had a victory except for this time, yeah. Which
his
as a rookie year, yeah,
4 wins on the season.
Wow, that's amazing.
Rookie year, yeah. So, first time winless for him. I'm sure he's thrilled to see this season get behind him, get moving on from there.
And he finishes 6th in the driver's standings, which is
not great.
No, behind his teammate for sure.
Yep, yeah. Otherwise, Tim, the season finale was a snoozer.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't find,
but a lot of these races have been snoozers, in my opinion. Yeah. When you look at
what Max sealing up the championship 4 races ago.
Yeah, and he's had 15 wins, so it's been something new for the series. It's broke the records on that, and so yeah, it's been a snoozer.
Yeah. Leclerc finished the second. We talked about that. That seals second in the Drivers' Championship. That also helps seal second in the Manufacturers' Championship for Ferrari. We'll talk a little bit more about Leclerc, but let me ask you this. So, questions at Ferrari. We saw that going into the weekend about the future of Binotto at that team, right? Is that a big deal, or is that a big deal? By replacing your team principal,
it's a big deal. It's definitely needed in the team, in my opinion. I think everything shows that it's needed. They got to do something different. They were dominant starting the season, and they didn't capitalize at all. And then at one point, with 10 races to go, they say that they could probably win the rest of the races of the season based on how their vehicle, how their cars. And then
I hate that. I hate that. You know where you see that a lot is in football. Right, the 0-4 Lions or the 0-6 Lions is like, well, we could win out and win a wild card. It's like, no, not likely, right?
No,
and it's just like Ferrari, right? It's like, well, there's no reason why we can't win the next 10 races. Sure, there are. I'll give you reason number 1, Ferrari. I'll give you reason number 2, Ferrari. You're not going to.
Too many mistakes within the team to take you out of the hunt yourself, right? Yeah. Nothing happened on the track. It's pit stops. It's strategy. You got to make a change. I would think. I don't think you sit by and let it happen again, unless you have great faith in his ability. But it didn't show this season at all when you appeared at the beginning of the season. Again, this is the beginning that you had the dominant car.
Right. I guess we'll see, right? Because the name that came up was Frederick Vasseur, who's the team principal at Alfa Romeo, Sauber.
Oh.
Which I'm sure they would hate to see him go because they have the pending Audi partnership in a couple of years, and I'm sure that they want as much stability there as they can offer because they're going to have some instability there with integrating a new partner.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see what the future holds.
Yep. I want to make some relationship observations, and I'm going to need to pull back to Brazil. So George Russell had a great weekend in Brazil. We already mentioned that, right? He won the race. He won the sprint
race.
Did you see it? Did you see the sprint race?
If I do, I don't recall much of it.
So when they came off they give you the medals, right? Because it's whatever, and they start,
I didn't see that
and
part.
and Lewis was there. You and I do this silly little podcast, right? But if you
Mhm.
and I won something together like that, either you're first or I'm first or whatever, the minute you come out on stage to where I'm at, I'm going to grab you as hard as I can and probably pick you up and swing you around, right?
Mhm.
Lewis was like George wasn't even there,
Huh.
and vice versa. I'm going to pull back just a little bit further.
So
Remember what we
US,
talked about at Circuit of the Americas,
yeah, US Grand Prix.
USGP?
Yeah.
They came out on stage to talk to the crowd separately.
Yep. And we were both scratching our heads, and we
Yeah.
talked about it in the podcast about, and that seemed a little odd that they came out, and it wasn't like right after, it was several 10,
Yeah.
20 minutes after each other, and no interaction at all from what we
None.
saw. So
Yep.
something's up, right?
Same
I
thing
would
there.
think.
I mean, he was happy for him on the win on Sunday, and that was fine, but it still seemed a little pressed to me, right? Like I read Lewis Hamilton's body language a little bit differently than maybe some other people do, and it's very likely I could be reading into it incorrectly. But I read into his body language a little bit different. Like I feel like some of that stuff is pressed. Like he's doing it to because he knows he's being watched. He knows that he's being
Hmm.
scrutinized for his
Yeah.
right for everything that he does, and that's incredibly unfair to him. But I'm not buying it. You know,
Well, I think there's always turmoil in any of these teams. I don't think you get
yeah,
anybody that's super close and
no,
nice, because you're always competing against the other
super
driver
competitive.
because
Yeah,
you're in the same car, and you two are the only ones in the same one, right?
yeah.
So it's always
So one
one
person you're
against
going to
another.
compete against.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep, yep.
I will say George though has really showed he can drive a car,
You can.
and he's come around, and
He's the
to
future of
get his
Mercedes.
first win is amazing.
Yep. That's why couple weeks ago when Lewis Hamilton kept talking about his contract, oh, we're going to work on a contract. We're going to work on an extension. Yeah, we're going to do something, right? You know who was talking about the contract extension at Mercedes? Lewis. You know who wasn't?
Toto.
The team.
Well, I I'm assuming they're working to keep him, but you have all the analysis from this year of the two drivers and how they go head to
It
head.
doesn't need any, right? His resume speaks for itself. Seven-time world champion, countless wins, right? And everything that he brings to the table as far as image and voice
Hmm.
and the whole bit. That's fine, but at some point you got to move on.
Hmm. Yeah. It's funny. His win total is greater than everybody else who's going to be on the grid in 2023. If you look at cumulative of everybody else on the grid and you look at Lewis, it's like 100 and some to 90 something.
Yep,
It's amazing.
no doubt. Great champion.
Hmm.
Had his moment. So we'll see. Further relationship observations. Obviously, we
Well,
talked about Verstappen and Perez, and we'll see how that thing works out. But here's the deal: guess who's coming to the team next year?
Daniel Ricciardo is my
Sure
understanding.
is.
Hmm.
Headed the Red Bull in a reserve role, right? He's going to do some simulation work. If somebody can't suit up and take the I don't know, the green flag, I guess. Then
The
Daniel would
lights
be in there.
out. Can't take the lights
Yeah.
out.
Right. So, what does this mean for Perez's future? You got to ask, right? You got to
Totally,
ask.
right?
He
Yeah,
signed through
totally.
2024. You know what that means? Nothing.
Hmm.
You know the first example I'll use on why that means nothing? Daniel Ricciardo was signed at McLaren through the end of next year,
Yep.
which means nothing.
Yeah.
They can pay, and Red Bull has the money to do it. Red Bull wants to pay Perez to go away. They can.
Yep, absolutely. They put Ricardo right in, depending
Sure.
on, how he does in this reserve role. So I think obviously he is in this reserve role for all of 2023, but come 2024, you never know what's going to happen. You have to look at those team dynamics and watch that throughout the off season as well as into next season, and see how they sort of how it plays out, because it'll be very interesting. And it's a good prediction of, there's a way to have Perez sort of what's the right word? Slowly or very, I guess slowly just kind of go off into the distance.
Yeah. Speaking of new drivers and new places, Nico Hulkenberg is replacing Mick Schumacher at Haas. Big deal.
Big deal. It is the Haas team. It is the US team. So we got to give a little excitement behind that, but
None.
none whatsoever.
Mm-mm. They were the
Huh.
U.S. team. Why wouldn't they have fought for a U.S. driver?
I don't know. Were there
And
any to
Williams is
have?
owned by a U.S. venture capital company, so
Yeah.
I don't
Were
buy
there
it.
any to have?
Logan Sargent,
The next guy on the list who went to Williams.
right? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Logan Sargent promoted to Williams to partner with Alex Albon, right? Replacing the Canadian Nicholas Latifi.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if this is a big deal or not. American driver, big deal.
That's a big deal.
You know, he saved his F1 career by making the choice last off season to join this Williams driver academy, this newly created Williams driver academy, because
Mm-hmm.
he was off to AJ Foyt
Yep.
and would have
Interesting.
probably been in that 14 instead of Kyle Kirkwood,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which means Kyle
Yep.
Kirkwood would have been wearing the Honda shirt and the Andretti hat and just walked around the Andretti hospitality for a season.
Yep. It's very
But
interesting
yeah, so we'll
how
see.
that plays out.
I'm rooting for him. Albon seems to have found a home there at Williams after moving on from Red Bull, and we'll see
Mm-hmm.
how he does. Well, and it all depends, Tim, on how well Williams puts the car together for next year.
Yeah, I
So
think
far,
so.
not
But you got
great.
to look at it. It's a Mercedes engine, right? So you look at
Mm-hmm.
what George Russell did and how he got into the seat. So um, there's a possibility there, right?
That
Moving up
Mercedes in
to,
that ad I sent you and Bill from Shelby earlier today has a Mercedes engine in it, but I wouldn't put a lot of faith in that car either.
the ad for the one that was for sale that was
Yeah, put a
poorly
Mercedes
written.
engine in a shopping cart, doesn't matter. It's still a shopping cart.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, best wishes to Seb Vettel for a terrific retirement. As you know, I was not exactly the biggest Seb Vettel fan when he was at Ferrari, but when he moved on to Aston Martin, I became a big Seb Vettel fan. Right? I
Mm-hmm.
liked his vibe. I liked his message. I liked who he was. I enjoyed the whole thing. It was sad to see him go. I was beyond elated to see all of the accolades that that his peers up and down the grid were able to give to him. Especially Schumacher's a huge fan, right? And a big supporter of Seb Vettel. So it was really nice to see them send him off that way, because I'm sure not everybody gets that kind of send off. And some of these drivers, they go away or they lose their ride and they never get that farewell tour, right?
Yeah.
Like Vettel did this year. So it was great to see him do that. I'm thrilled for him.
He
I
had
thought it was
four
fun to watch this
championships.
year. Yeah, 4 in a row
Yeah.
with Red Bull.
Yeah. And totally and 53 wins. So he was
And not the best teammate either, right? Had
mm-hmm.
situations with Weber, and I'm trying to think of who else he was with teammates with there. But I similar to Max, right? It's like, this is my program. You don't know how long this is going to last, and I've got to do what I got to do to lock down my program.
Yeah.
So you can't, you kind of can't fault them for that. I imagine it's just in the nature of it, right? You don't pay
Mm-hmm.
somebody $30 million a year because he's got a good attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got to be a killer. He has to be an absolute killer.
Yeah, definitely. So you asked if he was done. I think he's I think he's gonna ride off into the sunset. I don't think he's looking for a ride anywhere. I don't think he's gonna do anything. I think just
You
based
don't think
on
he'll be in a Ray Hall Letterman car at Road America next year?
not a chance. Nope.
No way.
Nope. He's riding off into the sunset at a young age of 35 years old. So
Yeah, good for him.
yeah.
Yeah. Manufacturers Championship, first place Red Bull. We talked about that. Is this the start of a new Red Bull dynasty, similar to that Vettel age where they won 4 in a row?
Nope.
You don't think so?
Nope. I don't think so at all.
So
I think the
Ferrari
competition
takes second, Are you confident that Ferrari can take it to Red Bull and Mercedes next year, or do you think at Mercedes just going to leapfrog Ferrari?
I think Mercedes is going to leapfrog Ferrari. Ferrari's going to have a decent year. They got to make some changes that we talked about earlier. But I think Mercedes is going to head back into that number one spot, but it's going to be a tough battle.
Wow. So you got Mercedes leapfrogging Ferrari and Red Bull.
I do.
Interesting.
They showed a lot
There's
of
another
improvement
bunch
over
you're
the
going to lose.
season.
Can we
And
put a bet on it?
we can always bet on the side a little bit, but I think they're gonna, they started off terrible, just terrible. Look at where they improved to. They got a win.
Dude, they were terrible at Abu Dhabi. They were terrible.
I know, that's okay. That the track didn't suit them. Long straight, the track didn't suit them. They couldn't make the change to the car they needed to make because it was built within the structure of that car, is my understanding. So they're going to the new car.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, they're gonna make it happen. Trust me, they will.
I don't. I think Red Bull will still win that next year.
They may still win it, but it's going to be a lot closer than it was this year.
I'm with you there.
So help me, good Lord. All right.
Yeah. Like, Ferrari is the one I don't know how much confidence I have in that. I know how much confidence I want to have in it, right? Ferrari fanboy, but I don't know how much confidence I have there. So you're suggesting that Mercedes will leapfrog.
And Ferrari has a great power plant, right? They had a great power plant and a decent car, and they didn't capitalize at the beginning of the year, and then they fell off. They fell off the cliff.
Yeah, tripped over their own feet more than one occasion. Yep.
Yeah.
Alpine finishes 4th. I don't know if I would be jumping off Alpine bandwagon to go to Aston Martin if I were Freddie Alonso, right?
Yeah.
And McLaren finishes 5th. And I think that was a gift because they were missing out the entire season, and they were hampered by one driver.
That's where I was going.
Yeah, hampered by one driver.
Otherwise, I think they would have finished 4th. Honestly,
whatever it is that they're paying Lando Norris is not enough.
Yep, he obviously carried the team. He did an awesome job. Got him to the 5th place in the constructors championship. He was the only driver besides the top 4 or top 3 teams to get a podium finish. So it was either a Red Bull, a Ferrari, Mercedes, and then there was Lando in the McLaren. The only other driver out of those top 3 teams. Just crazy to think about that.
Yeah. We'll see what happens going forward. Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen, he wrapped that up in Suzuka, which was 4 races from the end of the season. 15 wins this season, which is the new benchmark. Previously was 13, and that was by Vettel and Schumacher. Charles Leclerc finishes 2nd. He won Bahrain, which was the first race of the season. That's where I thought Ferrari was all over this thing. He won Australia, and he won Austria, which was on July 10th. Hadn't won since. But let me ask you, was Leclerc the second best driver this season?
Probably.
Perez had one less win. Perez finished 3rd. He won twice. He won at Monaco and at Singapore.
Yeah,
Tim says probably.
Probably. It's a toss-up, I think. I think it's really a toss-up. If you look at maybe it's Lando's the second best driver. He just didn't have the equipment.
Let me play devil's advocate because I'm a Checo fan, right? I'm a Ferrari fan, but I like Checo Perez. Checo drove the dominant car this season. 2 wins versus 3. And it came down to the wire and needed help from his teammate to take 2nd, which he didn't get, right? I would submit to you that I think Leclerc was definitely the second best driver this season. He was hampered by team. Leclerc was. hampered by car
Yep.
and development that at some point just stopped. Team being strategy was a disaster.
Yep.
Had a lot of mechanical difficulties, right? And
He made some
at some point, the
bonehead
team had to
moves
stop.
himself.
Oh, without a doubt. But he was trying to like overdrive this thing, right?
I
And trying
recall at
to
least
pull something together there. Yeah.
2 instances where he's in the gravel and out of the race
Yeah.
early when he didn't need to be,
Yep.
making driver mistakes. So
Yeah.
half of it's on him. He could have easily been in second place, and there would never been any controversy between, Perez trying to get, a place from Max in order to secure second place. So I didn't see Sergio make those same mistakes. So that's where I go.
Played
Potentially,
it
he's
very
the
safe.
second best.
But he also
What?
had the best car.
Well, he had the best car, but as we discussed, it's set up for Max. It's not set up for Checo, so
It
he's
is.
got to compensate for that. The car for Leclerc is set up for him all the time.
Yeah.
So I think it's a toss-up.
Yep. Third place for Perez. He won Monaco and Singapore. I already said. George Russell, fourth place, as you noted, beat Hamilton, who finished
He
seventh.
did. Yeah.
He had one win at Brazil. It was a great win. That was a good race. Carlos Sainz, one win, the British Grand Prix.
Interesting.
Sainz struggled on and off, right? He was kind of hot and cold, I think, this season. I think he's a great driver. He was better at that team last year than Leclerc was.
Yeah.
But, this year, not so much. And he was a little
And the
bit
first
behind
driver
some
coming in
cases.
for the non-top 3 teams is who? It's Lando in 7th.
Yeah. Was
Hamilton's
that?
in 6th.
There
Yep.
you go. Yep. Okay. So Hamilton's in 6th.
Yep. And then you got Ocon and Alonso, 8th and 9th.
And where did Ricardo finish?
Oh, geez. Let me look down the list. He finished 11th.
Yeah.
So not as far down as you would think, but he was tied with Vettel for the 37 points, which is not a lot of points.
No. Nope.
Very interesting. The one thing we didn't mention about F1 before we move off this topic is, I know there was a lot of hype over the pole position for Brazil. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the pole position for Kevin Magnussen in the sprint race. You asked me if it was a big deal or a big deal, big deal or big deal, however
Big deal.
There you go.
Or is big deal?
And I was of the one like, big deal. It doesn't really matter because there's a sprint race, there's the actual race. And I think at the end of the day, was it a big deal or a big deal, Dan?
Big deal.
What's your opinion now?
Big deal.
It was a big deal?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought at the time, though, you thought it was a big deal.
I didn't. Well, it kind of was, but I mean, he was luck of the draw.
Yeah.
Right. He did put down a time, so that was good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you had a red flag, and you had to make your way around that. So where you weren't able to get back out going.
There's a lot of hype about it, and I was like, it's not. See, here's how I wanted to compare, just real quick. It's like Indy 500, first day of qualifying, you're on the pole, but you have 2 more sessions before you actually determine who the pole position guy is. So it's not a big deal, not at all.
Right.
The hype was way too much for me.
Right. So Tim's saying big deal.
Big deal.
Big deal. Last question on F1. What did you think of the new car and tires?
The new car and tires. The tires were bigger. The cars, I think the thing I didn't like was I don't like the engine noise. And we've talked about this.
Yeah,
Everything
but
else
that's not new.
Yeah, but it's new since I last saw them live.
Yeah.
Or in person.
This was like in the 19s.
Well, it's been a long time, but that's okay.
That's not true, but yeah, it was.
No, it was in the 2000s, early 2007 or something like that. Something like that. So
let's take them separately. The car, the change in philosophy without all the gadgets and all the things hanging off of it, allegedly, right? Because there's still a lot of stuff on that car.
Yeah, I like how clean it is.
I don't mind the look of the car. It's not what I fell in love with F1, right?
Mm-hmm.
this porpoising thing is a mess, right?
I
They
think,
got to figure that thing out, and they're probably going to need some help from the FIA to get that squared away. But Red Bull hit it on the nose. So how much help do you need to give? I don't know, but these other teams are going to have to figure it out, because even in Abu Dhabi, the Mercedes was bouncing quite a bit,
yeah.
quite a bit.
So the car, I this season they all sort of look the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I would
Very
say,
similar, yeah.
yeah, the new car didn't do a whole lot for me because they were all the same. I love the when they're
Yeah.
different and they got different things going on, but they're all pretty much outfitted the same from a aesthetic purposes. Like when you just look at the lines in general, they all look right along the same. So
Yeah. I can't remember who it was now. Someone crashed and that wheel cover came off and they exposed the rim underneath it. Are they missing out on an opportunity to add a little dressing to the profile of these cars? Because that wheel cover being off of there, and then you expose the rim, which looked like that old BBS lace style rim, right? Was really cool. Looked great.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're missing out. I mean, I get it, right? Turbulence, it's supposed to help out the turbulence or whatever, but
Yeah. I don't love
these
it
cars
either.
should be sexy. Yeah, I
They
don't love
should.
that at all. And you don't like the fender either, right? The front.
Oh yeah, the
fender.
winglets or whatever those things are that come over.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are ridiculous. They need to go away for sure. So that's one thing that would definitely improve the look of the car. They just, I don't, they got to provide something, but every single car has them, so it's almost like a mandate. You got to put that thing on the. I don't like it. That's the worst part of it.
Change, right? Change. And I'm gonna mention this about the tires, and it's strictly about change. I saw a picture of one of Michael Schumacher's championship winning Ferraris on Twitter. Somebody bought it. Those old fat, low pro right tires. God, that's a great looking tire.
Yeah.
On that car. It's a great looking tire. Like this one looks funny, right? It's tall, not as wide, and
looks like the Michelin
just
Man.
doesn't look like a
I know they're
race car
Pirellis,
tire
but
to me,
yeah.
Let alone the fastest cars on the planet, right? The whole look of that. It just doesn't do it for me. It's change. I'll admit that first and foremost.
I like those that painted the wheel covers. Those are kind of cool, but not everybody did.
McLaren had that chrome, right? And chrome right, the
Google Chrome. The browser.
Yeah. And thanks for the bailout on that. And Alfa Romeo had the
red and white. That was kind of cool. I like that part of it.
Yeah.
Weren't they supposed to have LEDs? Did that never happen?
Somebody
It was like the big talk at the beginning of the season, but never saw that.
Yeah. Tim, we got some IndyCar news.
Let's do it. What's going on with your shirt? You don't know Jack is your shirt.
High V. Jack. What am I referring to? I'm referring to the Marshall Pruitt article, racer.com, that suggests there may be a number in sponsor change. Swap at Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan, moving the High V and number 45 to the Rookie of the Year, Christian Lundgaard, and moving Jack into the 30. And Jack would be in the, the rolling smorgasbord of sponsorships that was on Christian Lundgaard's car.
Yep.
All right. I've been planning these notes for days, so I'm not as aggravated about it as when it first came out. But I am.
You should have called an emergency meeting. Sometimes we do that when people get irritated.
I know, with the schedule. If we had a TikTok,
you brought up TikTok. That cracks me up. Keep going.
You were, yeah.
Anyway. Keep going. Yeah.
So, deficiencies last season, team or Jack? Tim?
Jack.
I don't know how you could possibly say that.
I have to say that.
It's not Lando and Ricardo, right? They were all, sucking wind, for the first 70% of the season. Then all of a sudden they got their act together. And by then Jack was still, running late.
The only reason I'm saying Jack is because you got to perform at least as best as your teammates have, and he came nowhere close the whole season.
But
And I'm
that
not
team
hating on
was
him. I'm just
erratic the entire season. There was no rhyme or reason to putting that car together at all. They were showing up at these tracks, Tim, with 3 different setups and 3 different philosophies, and they were trying to figure it out on the fly. Right?
well,
And Jack coming from Meyer Shank that has
mhm.
the Andretti engineering partnership,
Yep.
that was a complete difference for him. And I've said it on this podcast in the past. Christian Lundgaard comes directly from Europe, right? A
Mhm.
European driver in the Formula One seat, ladder series, just didn't make it into Formula One. In that series, you're given the equipment. Here, go make it fast. Go drive it fast because we know it can go fast.
And
So he has a different philosophy behind him. I don't know. I don't know that if Ray Hall gets off on that same foot next season, that he's gonna be, he's gonna be the star that he wound up being. And he beat Malukas at Coin.
yeah,
Big
yeah, the
deal.
team wasn't great. I agree
Yeah.
100%. The team was not good at all.
But
But the
but to just
others
say just
had
say, oh
bright
no, we need to
spots.
move it, right? We're gonna move it over, we're gonna take it off of Jack and we're gonna move it over to Lundgaard or whatever. It just doesn't feel right to me. And I guess I get it, right? If I were Hy-Vee, right, what do we say? We see that it takes about $6 million to run a full-time program in IndyCar, right?
Mhm.
So Hy-Vee's putting out $6 million to Ray Hall for a full-time season on the number 45. They did Iowa. They bought commercials. They had all that promotions going on in the store and everything else. They put out millions, right? In addition to the $6 million that they paid Ray Hall to put this turd on track, right?
Mhm.
I get it. How is it that you're pulling the plug though after one season?
It wasn't good, Dan.
Yeah,
It wasn't
that's
good at
not a,
all.
a season pulling a plug pulling season.
Maybe there were promises made and promises were not delivered.
If
And
if Ray Hall and Lundgaard were both, weekly top 10, then I could say, well, yeah, Jack underperformed and he just, right? He deserved it, right? He deserves the change.
mhm.
That's not the case.
It's very unfortunate if this is what it's come down to. But at the end of the day, I think you need to go back and just look at, there were bright spots for the others on the team. And I don't remember one for Jack, honestly. Like, I don't think there was one bright spot that came out of the season that you could hang your hat on and go, yeah, we had a hard time in setting up the car, but Jack outperformed the car on so many instances. And, if we get him a good car, he's going to be up there in the top three. He's going to be fighting for podiums. I don't know if you can say that. So if you come and if the thought prowess was bring Jack over because we think he can help with setups because he's has some intel from what they did at Meyer Shank with Team Andretti helping that program out, and he's going to bring some intel to our team, and we're going to come up with good setups collectively with the group. It just never came together the whole season. I wanted it to. You wanted it to. You got the shirt. Of course, you wanted it to. I even went to Hy-Vee to check it out.
Yeah.
Um, so it's
11 for Ray Hall, 14th for Lundgaard, and 22nd for Jack. And Jack missed Texas.
he missed one race. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
that's
5
big.
behind Jimmy Johnson, who everybody was clamoring to get back into the 48 for next year. Right?
It's Jimmy Johnson. He's a seven-time NASCAR champion.
Big
Jack's
deal.
not. Jack is not.
Right? Big deal.
Yeah. Well, there were talks about how quickly they pulled the gear at Hy-Vee with the you don't know Jack shirt. So stuff was going on behind the scenes before the
Yeah,
season was
because
even
that
over.
commercial changed. The one that we used to see where they were running the laps at Indianapolis Motor Speedway about the 45 car, and they took Jack's name off of that.
Yeah. It's
So
already in
I'm
the
not
works.
surprised. I'm aggravated by it though, because I just feel like a very successful company that came into IndyCar, and surely they had high expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You're making one guy the scapegoat, and you got a team that was unable to put a quality ride under that guy. Take that $6 million that Hy-Vee paid them and then everything else and all the other sponsorships that they have in that team? And they weren't able to put a quality car under any of them.
So if I'm hearing you right, you're saying Hy-Vee should be firing Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan team and moving to a different team rather
No.
than.
No, I'm not. No, you can't pull the plug on one bad season. I think, but you have to go to the team and have a very hard conversation. Like, we had high expectations. We paid a lot of money here. We've got a lot
Mhm.
on the line, right? We've provided you with every resource possible.
Yeah,
The team underperformed.
they did. The team
You're on
underperformed,
notice.
and I think the other two drivers showed a little promise rather than what Jack had showed all
Totally
season.
agree.
So
But it wasn't because Jack is incapable.
I didn't say he wasn't. He was incapable of driving whatever vehicle they were giving him, whatever setup they provided. It just wasn't working. And I'm not sure if it seems obvious they lost faith that it's not going to change come 2023. So they're saying we're going to go with one of your other drivers that has showed promise, won Rookie of the Year. Again, it was against Coin, as you mentioned, but showed some promising results and has won in the Ray Hall car, right? So I believe that happened last year. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. No, he had a good qualifying, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So he out qualified the others. That's what it was. So at the end of the day, I don't blame him, and I'm not upset about it. I sort of expected it, I guess.
Beyond aggravated by it.
I don't know what it leaves Jack, right? Jack's got to be thinking, I don't know.
Jack's got to be thinking, why in the hell did I leave Meyer Shank?
Yeah, I would think so.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to have a round of different sponsors coming in, which isn't a bad thing. It's still a quality ride. It's the same seat, if you will. It's just got a different number on it. So
Jack had one top 10.
Yeah,
had one top 10.
It's not good.
Under at 7.
I think the other news around Hy-Vee is all the different concerts they're bringing to the 2023 race. Some great acts coming in. They're still doing a great thing on that side.
Care,
and still...
I don't want to go to Iowa.
oh, your Wheaties. Oh, you're gonna cry in your Wheaties. But
don't care, and I don't want to go to Iowa.
Iowa's off the list.
Dan
is upset. What are you gonna do with that shirt?
I'm gonna wear it. I'm gonna wear it all 3 days at Indianapolis. I've got a
and you have the
terrific,
jersey.
Verizon one, and I'm not gonna wear it. I'm gonna wear this one. And I'm gonna pencil in Hy-Vee at the bottom. You don't know Jack Hy-Vee.
I wonder how many other fans are upset about this, because I'm not.
None. It's me.
No, it's you. And it's you and the one guy that we met at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
No, because he works for Hy-Vee, so he's on board with canning him. Yeah, I gotta move on. Tim, have you seen this? Why is there heat on Roger Penske and Penske Entertainment's ownership of the series and the Speedway?
Because of the success of Formula One. That's the only reason.
You think that's what that is?
That's all it is. There's nothing more to it. People are going to say they want different venues.
Yeah.
We need the new engine. We need a new chassis.
Hold on.
I'm just saying,
the success of Formula One, we want new venues. Let's go to Milwaukee. Oh yeah, that's taking it right to Formula One, man. That's taking it right to Formula One. Big deal.
I would... And again, I'm just saying, if you look at all the hype around Formula One, everything that's happening, there's not the hype around IndyCar is not even close. It's like
nowhere close.
It's like a fraction.
Yeah.
So I think that's what IndyCar fans want more.
I think you got to have a new car. I think you can deal with the 2-engine thing, right? It's been 2 engines for God knows how long. You need a new car, right? I mean,
yeah, you need
Jesus
more horsepower.
Took that car to the prom.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been around a long time. Okay. Otherwise, I mean, why the heat on that? I don't really know. I'm certain that there's some behind the scenes aspects of the series as well as the speedway that Roger Penske prioritized over. And you and I have talked about this. We've talked about this here on this podcast. We've talked about it together, you and I, right? You can't just go out there and sign new venues because somebody has a check and they're saying, "Hey, we're anxious to host a race. Hey, we'll take it." That's the Tony George IndyCar series, right? Roger
Mhm.
Penske is not willing to do that. He needs to make sure that there's equity in the dates that they choose, there's equity in the venues, and can they build around those venues? They have equity at Texas. At some point, Toyota may come back. Right? Toyota's right down the street, metaphorically speaking. They're right down the street, right? You kind of
Yeah.
have to have Texas work. So IndyCar's taking a different approach to Texas starting in 2023. So we'll see
Okay.
how that works out, right? You and I, there's some improvements to the
I
speedway, not so much in terms of concessions, because that's a disaster, right? It's almost like 200,000 people showed up and they weren't expecting it, right? There's no reason for you to go walking off with your kid to go get food and come back an hour later.
Yeah, it was a long time.
And it's not like you went to do anything else. You weren't sightseeing. You didn't get distracted. No, you were going to get
We stood in
food.
line.
Yeah.
Yeah, we stood in line for an hour, which was ridiculous.
Yeah. So, from that perspective, you got to ask yourself, it's like, okay, well, you cleaned and you painted and you replaced some urinal troughs,
Mm-hmm.
but right, you got to work out some of the rest of the stuff
The
too.
fan experience needs to be much
It's
better.
not great. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not great.
Yep.
So from that perspective, I get it. The added venues, you know where I'm at with it. You got to be measured with it, right? You can't be romantic and in love with the idea, oh, we want to go back to Milwaukee. Who's the market?
I,
What do you
good
going to do to
question. I
Road
don't know.
America? Right? What do you do to Road America? You bring Milwaukee back.
When you leave Road America, people love their road courses.
It's the same market.
You got a group that loves oval. So
It's the same market.
it is the same market, but maybe it's a different fan. It could be
It is, but
potentially.
you're taking a fan base that's this big already, right? And for those
It's
not watching on YouTube, this is not very big. And now you're parsing it out, right?
maybe
And
you draw some from
you and I have
Chicago.
been to
Milwaukee's
Michigan
closer.
when it was full of people,
I
and
know.
you and I have been at Michigan where it's like, did they forget to tell anybody we were here?
Yeah.
Right? And that's generally been the oval experience.
Mm-hmm.
Where you look at the Texas,
Yeah. There's nobody there. I don't even know if it's a good thing to keep it. If no one's showing up, why would you even keep it? What
gotta
does it say
promote
to
it.
Toyota? Toyota's going to
Yeah,
go.
they never promoted it.
Yeah, Toyota's going. Why would I come? You got 10 people at this race.
Yeah.
I think it sort of puts a black eye on the series rather than helps bring Toyota into the picture. I think if Toyota comes back, you look at a street course in downtown Dallas and
Sure.
do that. Drive around their headquarters. They do it at General Motors. They will.
I'm
Drive
glad that
around
you
their
said
place
that.
in Plano.
Yeah, F1 is putting the pressure on Penske Entertainment because you're
That's
probably
what
right.
it
They didn't
is.
really I didn't consider that, and you're probably right.
If that wasn't going gangbusters, I would be like, oh, everything's great. Things are going good.
Yeah.
But
You and I look at, right, as simple as we can make this, right? We look at the analytics for our show, right? Our modest little show here.
Yep.
Okay. When we have a F1 driven show, our numbers are not there.
You say they
our
go
numbers
down?
are not there like they are at IMSA or IndyCar.
Yeah, maybe I'm looking at different
right?
numbers. Yeah.
So they're not there. So, that's not our listener. That's not our fan base. It's not the IndyCar fan base. I would say that the IndyCar fan base, I wouldn't tell you that it's 90% of that fan base is also F1 fans. I think that's high. I think it's a different fan base.
I don't know. I like them both, so it's hard for
So
me
do I. But we're
to
racing.
choose one over the other. But in today's world, if you're going to choose one over the other,
all right, I got to get out of here. Still no certainty with third driver at Coin. Sato likely as an oval only program. That's what they're reporting on all the sites. Also might be moving over to sports cars. I would love to see Takuma Sato in a full bodied car because he's going to go full send and he's going to have his elbows out the entire 24, 6, 8, 2.5, however many hours that he'll be in that car.
Yeah, I'd love to see him back in IndyCar, but
Oval
he's
only.
unpredictable.
Nothing yet with the number 48 recently vacated by Jimmy Johnson. And again, if I were Nicholas Latifi, I would go there immediately. I would talk to Roman Grosjean, find out how fun it is to race in this series, how much more fun it is to be as part of this paddock versus the F1 paddock. And even if he wants to come here and maybe dabble in the ovals or not do the ovals or whatever, bring dad's money and get yourself into a championship ride.
Yeah, but big picture, is it good for the series, Dan?
Yeah.
Huh.
Because he's going to have a fan base, believe it or not, that will tune in to watch him in IndyCar. And if he's able to do anything, Grosjean had a more successful season, relatively speaking, at Coyne than he did last year at Andretti.
I agree.
So he did bring some viewers. He did bring a fan base to him. Now all of a sudden he's the villain again, but it's like he still brought people with him. And Latifi could very well bring some people with him as well. Stefan Wilson confirmed an Indy 500 attempt with Cusick Motorsports in partnership with Brian Reinbold. Good for him. That's great for them. I know they're always looking for that Indy 500 program. Where does this leave Sage Karam? Not sure yet. He's kind of outside looking in because, as you know, our little buddy Santino Ferrucci is going to go to Foyt.
That'll be interesting. That'll bring some people to watch.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That's all I got. Worn out. Got a headache. I'm aggravated again.
We were supposed to solve all the problems during this call, and we didn't solve them today. We'll have to solve them next time. Maybe
the Jack Harvey thing in the Ray Hall.
Maybe
I'm a fan of the team.
Yeah,
I'm a fan. Been fan of the team.
Maybe the listeners can talk some sense into you. I hope there's some comments that just help you through these two situations. One being Hy-Vee, and the second being Roger Penske.
Yeah,
because I think you need it. It's been a rough week a rough 2 weeks when it comes to those two for you.
Well, like Tim said, let us know on social media or our YouTube channel where we seem to get the most comments. Follow us on Twitter for now, and our Instagram and everything else. And we'll keep you updated on the 24 Hours of Daytona. Thanks again to our friends at Sonsio.
Yep. Hat still looks good.
Vehicle Protection. Tim, did you know that Sonsio also does protection plans for RVs?
I didn't.
Now you know.
Huh. Now I know.
Now you know.
And that's right up your alley because you have an RV.
Yeah. That's it. That's all I got.
That's all I got.
Catch you guys in a couple of weeks. Thanks for tuning in.
Take care.